They can get visits 2 times a week.
Yes.
And whatever happens in that room, it's up to them.
They can have sex.
Yeah.
In a world of irony and intrigue, where criminals are expected to spend their lives in hardship paying for their crimes, some inmates have been found enjoying unparalleled amenities and unbridled comfort. Imagine being offered your dream house as a punishment and getting paid for living a normal life. This isn't clickbait, but the reality of some prisoners who have too much money to afford luxury in prisons, and some who are lucky with their locations. Where exactly are these prisons? And what do they offer inmates to make a free man jealous? Join us as we journey into the luxury prisons of the ultra-rich, where confinement and comfort coexist. Justice Center Lin, Austria. This prison is considered one of the best in the world. It is so good that it can't be called a prison, but a justice center. Irrefutably, this prison is nothing short of a luxury hotel and offers an exquisite experience to the prisoners. Its beauty is not limited to its interior, but starts from when you drive up to the building. Every inmate is welcomed with a small, lush green lawn that wraps around the classy concrete and glass building, giving the structure an inviting feel. The polar opposite of the stark divisions seen in a typical jail. Far from what a prison is known to look like, more like a modernist library or office building than a compound holding 205 inmates. Each of the prisoners in Justice Center Lin has a solitary cell with a private bathroom, kitchenette, and television. They also have access to a recreational area that includes a basketball court, an outdoor gym, and additional open space for walking and socializing. Apart from this, there is also a full-size window in the room, just so the prisoners can get a view of the outside world. In this 5-star prison, inmates have access to every amenity that you take for granted in your homes, and even some activities that you have to pay for, like the spa. This prison makes you wonder if the system has punishment in mind or pampering, but the famous architect Joseph Hohensin, who designed this prison, made it known that he did this specifically for non-violent offenders. Here, you won't find horrific offenders like kidnappers and murderers, but only prisoners serving sentences for relatively minor offenses. But even though they have not committed a serious crime, many still question why the authorities chose pampering over a minor punishment. The intention behind building such a magnificent prison was to give prisoners serving time for relatively minor offenses better amenities so they could reflect on their actions. Has anyone ever reflected on their actions? In a prison whose description sounds more like an advertisement for a 5-star hotel, though, it seems it works, as 60% of the inmates that go there are said to never return. Now, just in case you're already packing your bags to commit a crime in Austria so you can enjoy the Justice Center, the prison is full and it's no longer taking reservations. But while this prison houses criminals with minor offenses, this next one has every type of criminal. Welcome to Halengeld Prison, Norway. A prison built in Halden Østfold, Norway for more than 10 years, and with 1.5 billion Norwegian kroner, or $252 million, or 138 million pounds, maybe 150 million euros, depending on the currency you can easily relate with. Apart from the amount spent on this prison, it was designed by the Danish group Erik Møller Architects and the Norwegian HLM Arkitektur AS, and these professionals made sure they carefully crafted the prison like a work of art. On top of that, the yard walls and toilet doors are decorated by a graffiti painting by the Norwegian artist Dolk, which was ordered by the prison from its $1 million art budget. If this prison could spend so much on just art, imagine what the interior looks like. To many who have visited this prison, it is known as the world's most humane prison. Built in the middle of the woods, the architects made sure that they kept nature within the prison walls with many trees, uneven grounds, blueberries, and adders. Judging from how it looks, it would be easy for anyone to run and hide without anyone finding out. However, nobody does. But do you blame them? Why should anyone from cells with a bed, a small fridge, a bookshelf, a TV, a desk, and a chair, including a private bathroom, a shower, a toilet, and a sink. The inmates also have a grocery store named Justisen, meaning the justice, where inmates can buy whatever they need to cook for themselves and each other. As if that was not enough, there is also a well-equipped music studio called Criminal Records, for inmates who wake up and feel like making music. Well, that's not all. They also have a garden, a holy room, a gym, a training room, a library, a computer room, a family visiting house, and more. One thing that makes this prison different from others is that it offers prisoners an opportunity to get a proper education while serving their sentence. The authorities also made sure that half of the guards were females, and guns are not usually carried because they create unnecessary intimidation and social distance. During the day, inmates can shoot hoops, climb the indoor rock wall, go jogging, or make use of the soccer field. While it sounds and gives the feel of a justice center, another difference is in its type of inmates. The prison holds approximately 250 prisoners, and nearly half have committed violent crimes like murder, assault, or kidnapping, while a third are convicted for selling or smuggling drugs. The philosophy behind this prison is that an occupied prisoner is a less violent prisoner and thus is less likely to lash out at guards or other inmates, which is why a lot is provided to keep them occupied. In case they get bored and do not feel like playing games, they can socialize with the guards during the day over waffles and coffee, dinner, volleyball, or just casual conversations. Many areas have no surveillance cameras, and prisoners can to some extent move around freely. To many people, this prison is too luxurious, and there is no proper punishment for offenders. However, statistics show that only 20% of Norwegian prisoners return to jail within 2 years, compared to 50 to 60% in the US. Just when you thought you had seen it all in Norway, this next prison even pays its inmates. Bastet Prison, Norway. Here, inmates live communally in comfortable homes, just like the previously discussed. Each man has his own room and shares the kitchen and other facilities with the other inmates. However, they do not have access to free 3 meals per day. Only a meal a day is provided for them, and if they want more food for the rest of the day, it must be bought from the local supermarket and prepared by the prisoners themselves. How? The inmates receive an allowance of $90 a month, which doesn't look like what you would survive with in a month, but in addition, they can earn up to $8 daily. They do a variety of jobs that include growing food, looking after horses, repairing bicycles, doing woodwork, and maintaining Bastet Island's facilities. They are also offered high-quality education and training programs to increase their skills. In their free time, inmates have the opportunity to visit the church, school, or library and engage in leisure activities such as horse riding, fishing, and tennis. Doesn't sound like a prison, right? You'd be surprised to see the prison guards looking like social workers, but surprisingly, they received 3 years of training compared to perhaps 6 months of training in the US. It is even more surprising to know that perpetrators of serious crimes, including murder, are kept here. Yet it has the lowest reoffending rate in Europe, which is 16%, compared with a European average of about 70%. And to think that none of them tries to escape, even though only 5 employees are kept there overnight, is mind-blowing. Ironically, before the current prison, the island was occupied by a brutal juvenile detention center. In 1915, it was the site of an insurrection by the boys, which was suppressed by the Norwegian military. The rebellion began when between 30 and 40 boys rallied around 4 youths who had escaped and been recaptured. The group refused to work, armed themselves with farming tools and stones, cut the telephone lines, and then burned down a barn with stolen matches and cigars. After the chaos was suppressed, the Norwegian government took over the juvenile facility in 1953 and shut it down in 1970. In 1982, the prison was reopened as the experimental project that has evolved into the Bastet Prison of today. Although not every Norwegian correctional facility is like this, they all follow a similar philosophy based on the belief that the only punishment that the state should inflict is the loss of liberty. The suffering of prisoners is intentionally minimized, and there is no death penalty or life sentence. In addition, The inmates are allowed to start jobs on the outside 18 months before leaving the prison. Solen Tuna Prison, Sweden. This prison is not just luxurious, but an award-winning prison. Tabellen 4, a building in Sollentuna high-security Remand Prison, won the 2019 BREEAM Public Projects in Use Award for its eco-friendly initiatives. It is all thanks to a 1,100 square meter green roof made of plants and the necessary turf, a ventilation system that recycles heat straight from the air, and a waste disposal room with storage for 8 different types of waste. The building is wrapped in 6,000 square meters of insulating glass, which both regulates the temperature and has built-in alarms. Other features include low-flush wet rooms, bathrooms designed so every surface can get wet, which reduces water consumption, more energy-efficient fridges, and LED lighting that can be switched on and off from a central surveillance center. The building is heated and cooled using a mechanical ventilation system. According to experts, this system, which recycles the energy in the air, has reduced the energy needed for heating by 50 to 60%, and they also convert all food waste into biogas. 12% of offerings are organic, and at least 2 meals a week are vegetarian. There is also an underground corridor that connects the prison, prosecutor's office, and courthouse. This is so prisoners can be transported safely without cars. The interior looks more like what you can liken to a 5-star hotel, as it has a size of bed that is unbelievable for a prison. But can you believe that some prisons even have jacuzzi? Let's take a look at our Xinjiang Prison, China. In case you have heard of this prison called the Tiger's Cage and wondered why it's on this list, well, it's all because Xinjiang Prison houses some really big people. The name was a result of China's hardline anti-corruption program, which has indiscriminately captured more than 1.3 million inmates. It was originally built for war criminals, but now it houses the political elite. The inmates are all officials from various stations in the government. From the lowly flies to the mighty tigers, included are top dogs such as ex-presidential aide Ling Jihua and Guo Boxiong, who served as a distinguished general, both sentenced to life imprisonment. In a strange twist of fate, Feng Jiping, the director of Beijing's Public Security Bureau who oversaw the construction of the prison, was imprisoned within the thick 5-meter-tall concrete walls he helped build. He once said, "If I had known I would serve time there, I would have made the prison nicer." Well, that statement was made when the conditions were poor. Now the conditions have grown better, particularly for high-profile prisoners who enjoy special perks in the luxury prison, like TV time and solitary walks around the prison grounds 6 times a week. The cells are also different, with VIP cells as large as 20 square meters and 2 windows instead of the standard ones, with some even having private bathrooms. Sounds more luxe than your college dorm? Wait till you hear about the meals which are also given depending on age, crime, social status, and rank. The VIPs are given special meals prepared by 5-star hotel chefs, while the smaller fries are given thin porridge and soup, usually with no meat or oil, paired with coarse cornbread. Today, the prisoners are allowed to busy themselves in certain hobbies and interest groups. Some VIPs can wear suits instead of the typical black prison uniform, and inmate Joe, who used to be one of China's most powerful men, even has his own small garden where he grows his own fruits and pumpkins. Life, however, is not all free and easy in Xinjiang for all inmates. Some are allegedly mistreated and watched around the clock. They are referred to by their prisoner number and have few belongings. Due to the status of the inmates, they are not allowed to see any other inmates, and this prolonged isolation damages the prisoners both physically and mentally. In modern times, this has gotten a little better for inmates, as sources say prisoners can now interact with one another for an hour or 2 a day. Forget about the nice treatment the caged tigers get here. It only shows that no man is too high or mighty for the law in China. Aranzus Prison, Spain. Unlike other prisons that give luxury to adults, Aranjuez Prison gives its own to children. This Spanish prison is the only prison in the world that thinks and cares about the lives and future of children of inmates. Because of these kids, they designed the prison in a way that parents can live with their kids. The prison has 36 cell units for families, with about 16 occupied, and the spacious units dubbed 5-star cells come replete with cribs and Disney characters on the walls with a prison playground for the kids outside. Kids spend their days like most kids outside by going to nursery school, drawing, and riding a tricycle. An example is a kid named Victor Manuel who was born in prison. His mother, Garcia, was sentenced to a minimum of 10 years in prison for murdering her boyfriend. She met her husband, Victor Lozano, in prison, got married behind bars, and gave birth to Victor Manuel. The idea of the prison designed this way is for children to bond with their imprisoned parents while young enough not to fully grasp the reality of incarceration, and for inmates seeking rehabilitation to learn parenting skills. While no one thinks it is an ideal situation, the arrangement beats the pain of separation. However, many believe this is not the best place to bring up a child. In some ways, they are imprisoned too, as prison is the only world they know. At dawn, a guard wakes the family up for roll call, and at night, after a day playing with other inmates' children in a yard, the kids are locked up again. Sometimes, some of them stand outside the cell crying because they do not want to go back behind bars. However, kids cannot be housed in the cell forever. They can only stay until age 3, and after that, they are taken away and put with relatives or with social services, while their parents go back to regular cells. International experts on penal policy said they had heard of no other prison in the world with family cells. There are, however, many prisons around the world with nurseries and cells where children can stay with their mothers. What comes close is a Denmark prison where there is a mixed-sex jail where couples, with and without children, spend the day together in a special wing but then are locked up at night in separate cells, with the child spending the night with the mother. While these prisons sound unbelievable, what is actually unbelievable is our subscriber pick, jacuzzi, sauna, pool with waterfall, a sports center big enough to host a national team, and all that you can't imagine in a prison are depicted in this image. And while it does not seem like anything possible, one man pulled it off effortlessly, building a personal prison to his taste. Who else would dare do anything like this if not someone extremely wealthy and powerful? The criminal is none other than the famous drug lord, Pablo Escobar. Back when the drug lord and king of coke agreed to a prison sentence in Colombia, he did so on his terms. He constructed a jail so lavish it was referred to as Hotel Escobar or Club Medellin, but the enduring name has been La Catedral, or the Cathedral, and with good reason. Pablo was allowed to incarcerate himself in this prison after he had been elusive for many years. He was able to do so many unbelievable things that a free man wouldn't even dare in his personal prison, and if allowed, he planned to do more. How did this come to be? And how did Pablo Escobar live in his prison? Let's find out as we take a quick trip to La Cathedral. During the reign of El Chapo, he had a lot of money and fame, but that only made him a target of the authorities. The Colombian government struggled to prosecute Escobar's Medellin cartel, but it was not easy as Pablo Escobar wasn't an easy man. Back then, Escobar was known by those who deplore the violence and devastation he wrought, and also by others who benefited from his acts of charity in his home city. Until today, everyone who had one encounter or the other, no matter what it was, cannot forget. However, a small group of politicians and policemen devoted to imposing the rule of law in Colombia refused to be intimidated by Escobar. Things eventually came to something of a deadlock, with both sides refusing to give up any ground until a new policy was tentatively agreed upon: negotiated surrender. The terms of surrender stipulated that Escobar and his cronies would cease their domestic terrorism and give themselves up to the authorities in exchange for the promise that they would not be extradited to the United States. By all means, Escobar was avoiding being extradited to the U.S. because that would mean the end of his activities. During negotiations, Escobar also added conditions that reduced his jail time to 5 years, and that would ensure he served his sentence in a prison of his own construction, surrounded by hand-picked guards, as well as protected from his enemies by Colombian soldiers. While most federal prisoners in the United States do have access to a gym, for example, they do not usually also have access to a sauna, jacuzzi, or pool with a waterfall. Nor do they have access to outdoor sports facilities grand enough to host national sports teams, as Escobar did when he invited the entire Colombian national team to play on his personal soccer pitch. La Catedral was so extravagant that it also boasted an industrial kitchen, a billiards room, several bars with big-screen TVs, and a disco where the drug kingpin actually hosted wedding receptions during his imprisonment. He feasted on stuffed turkey, caviar, fresh salmon, and smoked trout while in the arms of beauty queens. However, as opponents to the policy of negotiated surrender had predicted, imprisonment did not prevent Escobar from running his drug empire. During his time at Hotel Escobar, the kingpin received more than 300 unauthorized guests, including several wanted criminals. But the authorities left him untouched until 1992, when he ordered the murder of several cartel leaders, along with their entourages and families, from the security of his luxurious La Catedral. That was when the Colombian government decided it was time to end the charade, but by the time the army troops descended on Club Medellin, Escobar was long gone after having just walked out the door unmolested. At the time, he had served just 13 months of a 5-year sentence. 1 year later, Pablo Escobar was famously killed in a shootout while still on the run. But as for La Catedral, it remained deserted for years until the government loaned the property to a group of Benedictine monks. These monks, however, have claimed that Escobar's ghost still makes nighttime appearances. JVA Fuhlsbüttel Prison, Germany. This German prison is one of the most luxurious prisons in the world, offering inmates swanky cells, washing machines, spotless floors, and recreation rooms with telephone corners for inmates serving long sentences. German media reported that the European Court of Human Rights had criticized jail conditions in Germany for serious offenders, including sex offenders, who are serving long prison sentences. However, the prison argued that it was all for rehabilitation. They have access to many facilities like they did in their homes, in rooms with barred windows and newly renovated floors. While this prison has not always been this luxurious, the latter images that made it to the internet show how much it was renovated for the inmates to live well and safely in these jails. And just like other prisons claimed, it is their way of making the inmates perfect to be reintroduced into society. Next is Otago Correctional Facility, New Zealand. This prison has been dubbed the Milton Hilton, a place where prisoners can relax in ultimate luxury while they do their time. The Otago Corrections Facility does have underfloor heating, a handful of flat-screen televisions, a modest library, a gymnasium, and plenty of other facilities that might interest you. According to reports, a whopping sum of $218 million was splashed on this 335-bed facility located in New Zealand, which is evident in its interior that screams luxury. However, the Otago Correctional Facility manager Jack Harrison said there's nothing luxurious about this building. According to him, it is cheaper and more efficient to install underfloor heating than any other kind of heating. Let's agree that nothing was spent on that. What about every wing that has one flat-screen television screwed tight to the wall while prisoners are allowed their own television sets in their cells, subject to approval? They use the gymnasium, which promotes exercise and recreation, while the library and health facilities were all essential parts of providing basic services to prisoners, helping them reintegrate into society when they were released. According to the prison manager, providing a place where positive rehabilitation can happen was the key. One prisoner, who has resided in different prisons as well as the Otago facility, rates the latter highly, but not because of the comfortable surroundings. The man, who could not be identified, said the other prisons were like squalor and did not encourage anyone to get out of their cell and get motivated at all. While the Otago facility had similar routines and programs in place, the whole environment was much more positive. Alexander Macconochie Center, Australia. Ever seen a mixed prison? Welcome to Alexander Macconochie Center, an Australian prison in the Australian Capital Territory, which detains maximum security, minimum security, and remands inmates, both male and female. It is located in Hume, Australian Capital Territory, and operated by ACT Corrective Services, an agency of the Government of the Australian Capital Territory. The correctional facility was designed as a multi-role facility that provides full-time detention facilities so that prisoners who would previously have been held in New South Wales correctional facilities may be held locally. Accommodation here includes cell blocks, domestic-style cottages, a medical center and crisis support unit, a 14-bed management unit, and a transitional release center. Just like the others, the idea is to reform a prisoner to lead a normal life after their sentence is over. It is the first prison in Australia that was purposely built to meet human rights obligations, with its center designed with environmental principles in mind. It also includes initiatives such as ground freshwater storage, gray water recycling for toilet flushing and irrigation, solar hot water, and high-grade building insulation. This prison has the capacity to hold 300 inmates, and it is organized as a campus, with accommodation cottages around a town square that contains common facilities. There is a health building, an admissions building, an education building, a library, and a visiting center. See, nothing about this prison is different from a regular college, as inmates can be seen wearing whatever they want and strolling the corridors however they wish. There are minimal rules, and there is less intimidation from prison guards as well. Just say the inmates are out of their homes to change their environments for a while. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.